Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to your Lunch Break Live. My name is Savannah Harinkyu if you're new here, and if you're not, thank you for coming back. Today is almost said Tuesday. Today is Wednesday, February the 2nd, and today we are talking about COVID. Now, I know we are all sick of talking about it by this point, but we've got some numbers today that might make you feel a little bit better about where we are headed as a state. I am joined by our data reporter, Ramsey Archibald. Now, Ramsey has been making these maps and these graphs for us for, I guess, over 2 years now, and they have been really helpful for us to kind of break down exactly what is happening in our state and specifically in our counties. So, Ramsey, you have a story out, I believe, this morning about the latest case numbers and about how the Omicron surge seems to kind of be falling off in the state. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to just come out and say like things are looking good because, anything could happen. But for the past a little over a week now, it seems like cases and positivity rate, which are two of the main things we use to track the pandemic here, are starting to fall, especially well, it started at first in kind of the urban areas, Birmingham, Huntsville, Mobile, those areas. But now we're seeing it kind of statewide, and pretty much every county has seen a drop in cases over the past week or so. So that's definitely good news.
Well, and I'm going to go ahead and tell our viewers here if you have a specific county you want us to look at in the new numbers, that we did this maybe a week or two ago. So we've got some new data for those counties. Let us know. Go ahead and drop your county name here in the comments, and I'll look through them and I'll pull up that map in just a minute. But before we get there, Ramsey, you said in your story that there are 62 out of Alabama, 67 counties that are cooling off with COVID, that are kind of having their numbers drop and look a little bit better. So there are about 5 counties where that is not the case. But overall, can you give us an average of what the case drop is and also where we are as a state with the 7-day positivity rate as well?
Yeah, so I mean, it depends on where you're looking. Like I said, some of the early counties like Birmingham or Jefferson County and Mobile County kind of saw big drops early on. They're still dropping, but when you control for population, we're really seeing a huge drop on the western side of the state, really the whole Mississippi border. It's kind of interesting. Once we pull up that map, you'll be able to see that. But statewide, the adjusted positivity rate, there's been a bunch of data problems. So looking at that adjusted number, it's dropped by about 41% in 12 days or so. So that's a pretty significant drop in a not that large stretch of time. So, we want to keep seeing that number go down.
Well, and I believe that in this morning's numbers are slightly different from the ones that you had in your reporting. But right now, the 7-day positivity rate, which again is the rate of tests that are coming back positive, not just the amount of people. It's got to be people who are being tested. That rate of positivity is down to about 34%. That's a big deal, especially compared to the probably rate a week or so ago, which was over 40%.
Yeah, it's a big drop, and again, it's kind of similar to cases. I mean, those numbers go hand in hand. But to put it in perspective, we haven't seen the positivity rate be as low as it is right now since last year now. So December 30th of 2021 was the last time it was below 35%. And again, it's worth pointing out that this is still pre-Omicron. This would be the highest number we've ever seen. So it's still a high number, but we're starting to see it go down. It's going down by about 1 percentage point every day, which is a good clip. We'd like to see that continue as well.
So I'm going to pull up this county map here now. Ramsey, again, you made this. This is in your story today, and we will leave a link here so people can go to that story and can access all of the maps that we're going to talk about. So these maps, like the ones that you have been making again for several years now, are interactive. You can hover over them, especially on this one. You can hover over the county. It'll give you your county numbers. So tell us about the color coding on this map. Last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever we talked last, we talked about a map that was completely different colors. I think that was all shades of red and purple. So tell us a little bit about the legend here with the blue, the white, and the red.
Sure. So essentially, the darker the blue on this map, the better things are trending. The bigger the decrease in cases. White would be zero, basically no change, and then red, the redder the county is, the worse things are getting, or the bigger increase in cases you're seeing. And this is just to give a little context. This is cases per 10,000 people in the last week. So the change controlled for population over the last 7 days.
So I have a question here from Marjorie about Coleman. So I'm going to hover over Coleman and Ramsey. I know you were just kind of explaining the colors. Tell us a little bit about what these different numbers mean. Now, we won't do that for every county, but go ahead and tell us what this box is kind of showing us. And then that way, when we look at other counties, we have an idea of what these numbers actually mean.
Yeah. So the first number you see in that little box is the just base 7-day average for new cases. That's the total number of daily cases each county is averaging currently. So over the last 7 days. That next number is that number controlled for population. So like I said, the 7-day average of cases per 10,000 residents. You do that so that you can kind of compare county to county, because you have, some counties with 600,000 people in Jefferson, and then some with just less than 10,000, down in the Black Belt area and some of the rural counties in Alabama. So you do that to control for population so you can compare them. And that bottom number is the change in that case per capita number over the last week. That's what's mapped. So those colors correspond to that bottom number on that little square.
So another question about Talladega County. So Talladega County right here, again, you can see that current 7-day average at 181.4. And then that number on the bottom that you say is what this color coding really corresponds to is a negative 6.2. So when we see negative 6.2, what exactly does that mean, Ramsey?
That means that number right above it, 22.1, was 6.2 higher last week. So you were looking at 28.3 cases per 10,000 residents per day in Talladega County 1 week from yesterday. And now you're looking at 22.1. So you want that number to be negative. That means things are getting a little bit better.
Got it. Now, one thing before we get into any other specific counties is I want to look at the counties that really stand out here. So let's talk about what the bluest county is, or what is probably the county that's doing the best in terms of dropping COVID rates, and then talk about the reddest county, which is the county that is doing the worst in terms of dropping COVID rates, aka not dropping nearly as much as we would like. So let's start off on the red. This is Otaga County. So tell us what's going on in Otaga County.
Yeah, and you really see the whole Montgomery Metro, which Otaga County is part of. Uh, there's something interesting going on there. They were kind of among the first to see a drop for a while in Omicron cases, but now we're starting to see that sort of reverse in that area. And I'm not really sure why that's happening, but Otaga County in particular has seen a big increase over the past, couple of days. And you can see an increase of 21.1 cases per 10,000 residents per day. That's more than double what they were averaging before. That's a big increase. And again, I don't know what's going on there, whether it may be a data issue or if they really are seeing a resurgence. We need to let more data come in and see what's happening.
Now, it should be noted, though, that the surrounding counties, while they are maybe not as red or technically as growing in terms of COVID cases as Otaga County, they are not necessarily doing as well as the rest of the state. So if it is a data problem, we might expect that to be more of an outlier, like you look up at Cleburne County. But when you go down to Otaga County, the surrounding areas seem to be facing maybe not as bad of a problem, but kind of a similar problem as well.
Yeah, for sure. And again, that's that Montgomery Metro, which it could be that a lab that residents from those counties all go to or went to reported a backlog in cases. We've seen that a couple of times throughout the pandemic. But again, we don't know for sure what's happening there. So it's definitely worth monitoring.
That's a good thing to note there. So let's move down here to the Crenshaw County and the Butler County region. They are close enough to this kind of red area that could be affected by that same problem that you were mentioning that could be possible. But they are the what we would say is probably the most white of these counties in terms of this color coding. So tell us again what that means. It seems like that means that they haven't changed as much for better or for worse as the rest of the counties in the state.
Yeah, that's exactly right. What you're basically seeing in those areas is a bit of a plateau over the last week. So that means you're not peaking, but you're also not declining. You're kind of just staying flat, which so far with Omicron and with past waves as well, what you expect to see is a little bit of a plateau in a county at a regional level before you then see that drop. That's what happened over the past several weeks in Jefferson County and Mobile County, and as well as Madison County, which is where Huntsville is in North Alabama. So you see that bit of a plateau, and then you finally see a drop. So that plateau, you'd like to see cases going down rather than staying flat, but it's an important part of the, quote unquote healing process. You kind of have to go through that little stage before you can start to see a decline in cases.
Now, it looks like the county that is cooling off the most in terms of this color coding is Pickens County. So, Pickens County, that's a pretty big change. You can see negative 27.1. That's a big deal there in Pickens County. But you kind of mentioned earlier that whole western side of the state that is touching Mississippi seems to be cooling off faster than the rest of the state. Do we know of any reason for that?
I'm not sure as to exactly why. Part of it may be controlling for population. There's a lot of reasons that could be uh, coming into effect there. But actually, if you look at the Colbert County in far northwest Alabama, that's the one that's had the biggest decrease at 27.9. Um, and that area in particular in northwest Alabama had high cases most recently. So that kind of explains why there's been a drop there. So you go from high cases and you drop, it makes sense that you would have a larger decrease because you had a higher number of cases to begin with. Um, but yeah, like you said, that whole western side of the state has big drops, especially when controlling for population. And I'm not exactly sure what's causing that.
Interesting just to look at. And I love these maps that you have made, Ramsey, because it does give us a just quick at a glance look at how things are going. And this one, especially with us reading that this news of the case numbers that are seeming to drop a little bit, giving us a little bit of optimism, and then being able to pick out our county or at least our region of the state and see how we're doing compared to other parts of the state, I think is really helpful. Now, I know we had some questions about Blount County, so we'll hover over Blount County right here. You can see the current 7-day average and then the change. But it seems like Blount County and kind of the entire Jefferson County, Birmingham metro area is kind of doing about the same, Ramsey. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing uh, on this map when controlling for population, Jefferson County in particular looks more on the white side than the blue side. But when you look at the raw case count decline over the past week, so not controlling for population, Jefferson County has dropped the most. I mean, it makes sense that they would wash out because it's the largest county in the state. But case counts are going down in Jefferson County very quickly, and I think that's a very good sign. And you'll start to see that spread throughout the metro area as well as time goes on, or at least I hope that that is the case.
Now I'm going to move up to Madison County. I had several people asking about Madison County. Again, it's in that same kind of vein, I think, as Jefferson County. Huntsville, we know, is now the largest city in Alabama. So the county kind of rivaling Jefferson County for that status of so many people in the county. So you can see it's a similar number there. So Ramsey, is that something you expected to see with counties about the same size?
Well, while Huntsville's bigger than Birmingham, Jefferson County is still significantly larger than Madison County. But that being said, they're all large counties. Those are some of the bigger counties in the state. And yeah, you would expect to see again that kind of like pale blue as controlling for population. The decline isn't as much. Madison County is sort of an interesting example because while Jefferson and Mobile counties were starting to plateau and decline, Madison was a little bit slower. They stayed increasing or plateauing longer. But now, like you see here, they are starting to go down with the rest of those cities. Although, again, now Montgomery is starting to trend in the opposite direction. So it's sort of been interesting to watch those big four counties and compare them to each other over the last few weeks.
Shelby, again, looking pretty similar to Jefferson as well. I know we had some questions about Shelby. Now, what I'm going to do here is I've got a couple questions I'm going to throw to you, Ramsey, while I pull up another map that you made. I'm going to pull it up and then let you explain it because I think it's very interesting. But in the meantime, while I do this, one question for you from Justin. Justin says, the testing capabilities in Mobile County are still severely limited. Does this data take that into consideration?
So that's a great question. The map that you're looking at there shows just raw cases. So if you have you know a problem with testing, that would not reflect there. It may show fewer cases than there actually are if there are testing issues. The number you want to look at if you're worried about testing is positivity rate, and you can find positivity rate by county on the ADPH dashboard, which is linked in my story, and I'll be sure to do some reporting on that by county in the coming days.
That's a good point there, Ramsey. Now I'm going to pull up this other map. This one looks a little bit more intimidating if you are not as into math and numbers like myself. So, Ramsey, I'm going to pull this up, let you explain this, and kind of walk us through exactly what this means. And then I want you to explain how people can use this to look at their own counties and their own areas. So, I'm going to add this now. I'm going to kind of zoom in a little bit on these kind of graphs and these numbers. So if you miss the words for a minute, Ramsey, I know you're going to walk through that, but I just want to give people a good look at the numbers here.
Sure. So this is basically just showing the raw 7-day average for every county in Alabama. The ones shown here are the Jefferson, Madison, Mobile, and Montgomery counties, which are some of the largest in the state. But while the last map was controlling for population, this chart does not. So this is just exactly how many cases each county has averaged basically since the start of the Omicron wave. So it's useful to see over time what's happening. So that purple line you can see there down at the bottom is Montgomery. You can see how they declined for a long time, like I was saying before, but have started to see a resurgence in recent days. There's an uptick toward the right side of that chart. Meanwhile, the other three of the large counties plateaued for a while, and then is now starting to drop again. So you can see those trends as they've played out throughout the Omicron wave.
Now, this is a interesting map to me because I'm going to scroll up a little so you can see a little more of these words, and you can see that actually you can search for your county. So right now we have it set on kind of the big four that you mentioned, Ramsey. We have Jefferson, Madison, Mobile, and Montgomery, and these colors coordinate to one of the counties. You can really compare them and see how things are going. But you can actually tailor this to whatever region or whatever counties you want, Ramsey. Is that right? So I'm going to scroll back up and let you explain how to use this, and I will show how to use it while you kind of walk us through it.
Yeah, so there's that little search bar at the top, and you can search for any Alabama county. There's 67 counties, and with this particular version of the chart, you can search for up to 4 at a time, or you could just search for one. Right now, you're showing Baldwin, which, like some of the other large counties in the state, is seeing a pretty large decline in cases. And it's worth noting that Baldwin is actually the 4th largest county in the state now. They passed Montgomery, so there's an argument we should have included them in the opening slide as well. But again, a big decrease in one of those highly populated counties, which is a good thing to see.
Well, and the cool thing about this map is let's compare it. We know Baldwin too is also, I believe, the largest landmass county in the state as well. So you mentioned that they are around the same population as Montgomery, or kind of rivaling those big four. So let's compare them. That's the good thing about this map. We can add Montgomery. So now Montgomery's been added in that purple color, and Baldwin is on the graph as well in that orange color. So you can really see they kind of intersect, and then they go in completely opposite directions around January the 23rd.
Yeah, and that's a cool thing about this chart is that you can compare these. And like you said, these are very similar in size as far as population goes. And you can see that they've had different outcomes so far during the Omicron wave. Montgomery had that high peak, then a valley, and then now it seems to be peaking again, while Baldwin more slow increase followed by a plateau, and is now seeing a decline.
Well, and I'm going to add Mobile in here because we know Baldwin and Mobile are neighbors, and it could be interesting for people, especially in the South Alabama region, to see how they're going up against each other. So you add the Mobile in here, which is now that graph that is the green line up top, and it looks like Mobile has had a much harder time than those other two counties.
Well, you have to think Mobile is, I think, the 2nd most populous county in the state. There's a lot more people in Mobile than there are in those other two. So that means the fact that Montgomery and Mobile are now very close to each other as far as total cases. Remember, this is not controlling for population. This is just total cases per day, is telling. It shows that Mobile is now recovering while you're seeing the opposite of Montgomery. It's pretty interesting.
This map is just so interesting to me. And as you said, the Mobile numbers compared to those Montgomery numbers, very different in the region of, I can't exactly read that date, I need my glasses on, but around the 16th, I believe that says, and then meeting up to be very similar here today. And at the end, I believe this data was from Monday, so we'll say a day old data there. That's just, it's very interesting, and I think this map could be useful for a lot of people. Now, again, just looking through some of the comments here, Ramsey, have you seen anything different between counties that are more urban, counties that are more rural? What have you seen in terms of COVID cases falling when it depends on that?
That's a great question. Really within the last week, so last week and 2 weeks ago, I was really tracking this particularly because we were starting to see a decline in urban areas, but a rise somewhat in rural areas. And I think that's part of the way that Omicron spreads. It hits those highly populated, densely populated areas first and then spreads out. So we were tracking that, but then we've now started to see the recovery in rural areas too, which is great news. We weren't sure how long that was going to last, that increase was going to last in those rural areas. So now that we're seeing a decline almost everywhere in the state, there's not a huge difference except for in that, Montgomery metro area and then Cleveland County, like we mentioned. Those are the only areas in the state that are seeing increases in case counts right now.
Remind us one more time, Ramsey, where you are getting this data. I know that you have plugged in the data into these maps and made the maps for our visual aid, but you didn't make up the data. Where did you get the data from?
Yeah, this all comes from the Alabama Department of Public Health, the government agency in charge of public health in the state of Alabama.
Just wanted to, as always, make that clear. And also, again, these maps are ones that you create. And I know you're going to be keeping them updated. We know, again, that this data, and I believe in your story, the data came from Monday. And even since Monday, we've seen a slight drop. In your story, you had our positivity rate as a state, I believe, at 35.4. And today, even gone down a little bit. We were talking about it before we went live to 34.2. So a little bit of good news. I will take that good news, even though it's just a little bit of drop. It's better than nothing.
Yeah, I mean, what you're looking for is that number to go down steadily day over day. And that's what we've been seeing. We've seen that positivity rate at the statewide level drop by just about 1 percentage point per day over the past several days. And if that continues, we'll be back to where we want to be, I guess, relatively soon.
Ramsey, thank you so much for your reporting over the last several years on this. Thank you for these maps. And we're going to leave a link here to your story, and that's where these maps are. So the maps are in the story link that we're leaving here. You can click on that link. And if you can't see the maps, there's also a handy hyperlink in the story as well to make those maps full screen. You can play with them and do what we've been doing here. So Ramsey, thank you so much for your reporting. And everybody watching, thank you so much. We'll see you.